There's a very long 3-4 pages about what a yield is in the designer's manual that Bill Mollison wrote. It's much more than a product, that's for sure. It involves clean air. It involves producing water. You know, by planting trees, you're going to produce water. Somehow, some way. Do you know why? Any?
Respiration tract.
Yeah, yeah, that's one. Yep, evapotranspiration. Yep, yep.
It attracts rainwater, doesn't it?
They attract water. The biggest thing is that they're actually mechanical pumps. They pump atmospheric water through their leaves, through a network called xylem and phloem, down into the roots, down into the earth. They also pump water and nutrients up from the earth, up through the trunk, and then through the leaves. So, obtain a yield, very important. Much more than what we personally, or not personally, but we currently see as yield. We see yield as a commodity, a product, a tomato. You know, we don't see it as a smaller tomato, healthier soil, more organisms living in the soil, the creation of more organisms. With trees, we don't see it as the production of clean air, the pumping of water, the creation of clouds, the creation of weather systems, wind breaks. You know, we just don't see that in our current language. So the industrial technological language that we use today, it is incapable of seeing holistically. It's pretty much destructive, all in all. So next is apply self-regulation and accept feedback. So accepting feedback is tricky because what we've been taught is we've been taught to whine when we fail and get pissy and get 2-year-oldy, you know. And instead of that, with accepting feedback, we have to not take it personally. We have to know that the joy is in the journey. It's in the process. It's not in the end. It's the same thing Gandhi talked about. Not having any connections to the end result. Just enjoy the process. Fukuoka talked about it. He claimed do-nothing farming. So there's this massive rush of hippies that go out there, you know, and they're thinking, wow, we're going to be like hanging out and just chilling and, you know, doing farming, creating all kinds of food, and it's not quite my bamboo because I put my pee on them, you know. And the same thing with my manure. Produce no waste. Well, let's go to manure. I produce waste pretty much every morning and certain types of the time periods during the day. But it's not waste because I use it back into the system. I'm looping it back in. Design from patterns to details. Now, this is almost a mantra to me because the details are what we always are trying to figure out, but we haven't even figured out the patterns. So when I say patterns, I mean, you know, okay, let's say this is said farm, which unfortunately this is how we break up farmland. And these are the contours of the land. These are some patterns. These contours are definite patterns. Does everybody know what a contour is?
The sloping.
No, it's not the sloping of the land. The slope of the land is definitely this. However, that's a contour. It's partly the sloping of the land, but let's just say this is a ridge. These are the contours. This elevation here is the same elevation as there. When you look on a topo map, you see all these crazy lines that look like snakes everywhere. Those are topographical contour lines. They're usually spaced out every 20 feet, but that depends on the mapping and the mapping system and the map person and all that stuff and what they're doing. So this is a pattern that we can look at and we can observe and interact with. Now, someone might have put a road, let's just say this is a road, on that ridge. And it's a good road. So, obviously there's going to be water falling that way, right? And this way, and this way. So, and I say water because I personally think that water should be the basis for all of our designs. First, we have to find out where the water is going. Because if you don't have water, and if you don't slow the water down, and you don't store it and sink it, then you don't have soil fertility. You have drought. And you have a wasted resource that's coming in for free. You know, and rainwater is the best. So, this is the pattern. Now the details are okay, where am I going to put ponds? How are those ponds going to work in conjunction with my orchard? So, and this keeps going on kind of in a nesting, you know, the details keep getting more detailed. The patterns go to detail, and then the details go more detailed and then detailed. So you might get an idea as to where you're going to put your trees if you know where your pond's going to be. Or a swale. This could be a swale. That means that you're catching this water and you're running it back into that contour. And you're going to see this later on. It's all going to make sense when we go to my place and when we walk through here. Because I've got swale systems, ponds, and many mistakes. But it sure is a good idea to put a swale above a production area. And I say production area, I mean a place where you're going to harvest food, crops, whatever. That's what I mean. Now the details of that is, you know, how do you want to build this pond? Do you want to build an earth contour dam? Do you want to build a catfish pond? Do you want to build just small little ponds? Do you have, depending on your resources, there's all these things that are involved. The orchard part of the food forest, that gets into details of what trees do you want to do? What kind of soils do you have? What's the regrowth pattern on your current vegetation? How fast is it growing back? That really does have a very large importance when you're considering what you're going to do here. You know, do you want to have pretty flowers in between each row of trees? Now, this all depends on, the details depend on what you personally need and want, and also what the land is explaining as well. So I hope that can give you some sort of idea as to what I mean by design from patterns to details. Integrate rather than separate. Well, that's pretty obvious. You know, separate is we separate societies, or we separate intellects, or we separate, you know, it's competitive, it's negative. Integrate is positive, it's open, it's expansive. It makes more sense. You know, it's not one way, or, you know, it's not this way is the only way. Sometimes it is the only way, but sometimes it's not, you know.